Welcome back, warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here today. LaTarsha Brown, Jesse Smollett, Trayvon Martin. What do these three names have in common? Well, they're all associated with race hoaxes. That's right, race hoaxes. Either they perpetuated the hoaxes themselves or it was perpetuated on their behalf. And although one of them unfortunately died, that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do, don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, subscribe to my channel, select all notifications so you never ever miss a video that I post. Let's get into it. All right, so February 2012 in Sanford, Florida, a teenager, a 17-year-old by the name of Trayvon Martin, was walking from the convenience store in the rain in a dark hoodie with Arizona tea and a bag of Skittles. But somehow this whole thing was turned into something that looked like something else. It looked like a racist white Hispanic targeted him. But is that really what happened? Now, I want you all to remember that the media controls our thoughts and how we feel about things. They dredge up emotions in us. Anyone who controls the media controls the narrative, and they control our minds. And this is not something new. And you're probably asking, but Linda B, this wasn't a hoax. I mean, George Zimmerman was a racist, but was he really? We're going to unpack what really happened on that fateful day back in February of 2012.
Politically, I was a Democrat. I was an Obama supporter. I had been caught up in the promises of hope and change.
And our time for change has come.
I would say Barack Obama's candidacy did inspire me to become more active.
Can you tell me about your mentoring experience?
I was mentoring two African-American teenagers in a suburb of Orlando. Unfortunately, they had a father that was imprisoned for life, so they didn't really have a father in the home.
What kind of things were they getting into trouble-wise that you were able to help intervene with?
Unfortunately, as bad as pulling weapons on their parent or slashing tires, skipping school, really a variety of things that a lot of teenagers from that socioeconomic background struggle with. I take them to restaurants that they hadn't been to, kind of expand their cultural horizons. We spend a lot of time at churches, playing basketball, just spending time with them one-on-one, letting them know that they were important. And then whenever I could afford it, I'd splurge and take them somewhere nice. It was inspiring to see a positive change in kids that had a troubled background.
Now, does that sound like someone who is racist? Mind you, while I was looking at this particular trial, George Zimmerman trial back in 2013, I noticed something about George Zimmerman's family. He has Black people in his family. And I heard a soundbite where he admitted that. And it looks like he was helping teens, troubled teens that did not have their father in the home. And he would take them places, try to mentor them, encourage them, took them to church, a nice restaurant, even played ball with them. Now, I want us to be mindful, not to be caught up in our feelings. I have a t-shirt that literally says facts over feelings. The media can get us emotional. So what did the media actually do to America, particularly Black Americans like myself, who really believed everything the media was dishing out? I mean, I ate it up, all of it. My plate was clean. I remember watching the verdict and remember thinking, oh my gosh, I am so upset. But you know what? That is what it is designed to do. To emotionalize us is emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation, psychological warfare, brainwashing. They are programming us to think a certain way and to see everything through the lens of race.
I heard someone ring my doorbell repeatedly, and I saw two young African-American guys. They broke into my house. I heard some bangs downstairs, and he was shaking the doorknob trying to get in. And I was sitting there with a pair of rusty scissors and my son in one arm.
Neighborhood Watch was not something that I had thought of becoming a part of or wanted to be a part of. My wife had urged me to do something. I had seen in the neighborhood that there were Neighborhood Watch signs up, and I told her that I would go to the next homeowners association meeting. I was willing to do anything to give her a sense of comfort.
Okay, so the neighborhood was riddled with crime, and you heard a witness say that there were some African-American boys, and she had a pair of rusty scissors. And I remember hearing that George Zimmerman said when he was on the phone with 911, literally saying that there's this guy, he looks like he's on drugs or something, and he had talked about there had been some robberies in the neighborhood, and he just wanted to approach him. And when he approached, that's when the altercation took place. And you know, some people are going to say, well, he had no right to even ask him a question. He had no right to do that. But did the other person allegedly, you know, we can say that Trayvon Martin, from the looks of it, looks like they got into a fight, and Trayvon Martin got the better of George Zimmerman, banging his head, punching him in the nose. And that's where the stand your ground law in Florida came into place. But I want you all, and I remember this so clearly, I remember that they made it look like a racial reason as to why George Zimmerman even approached Trayvon Martin. But if we were to take our emotions out of it and look at the fact that this is a neighborhood riddled with crime, and he wanted to participate in helping his wife feel better about what was going on in their neighborhood. So he wasn't really interested in doing it, but he decided to do it and wanted to know what was going on with Trayvon. And I remember him saying something it just stood out, that it looks like he's on drugs. And that's where the Skittles and the iced tea come into play. But also remember what actually happened according to George Zimmerman, because the only thing we have is what he can say, because Trayvon is no longer with us. But also look at the injuries that George Zimmerman suffered.
And then when I got to right about here, he yelled from behind me to the side of me. He said, "Yo, you got a problem?" And I turned around and I said, "No, I don't have a problem, man." And he said, "You got a problem now." And then he was here and he punched me in the face.
Being over 6 foot tall, he closed the gap between he and I very quickly and sucker punched me and broke my nose. When he broke my nose, I lost my footing. I was disoriented.
He pushed me down. Somehow he got on top of me.
My head was about halfway onto the concrete and my body was mostly on the grassy area.
And he just kept slamming it.
He kept pummeling me with punches, decided to beat my head into the concrete sidewalk.
I started screaming, "Help, help," as loud as I could.
Kept going through my mind is get your head off the pavement. You're gonna lose consciousness.
911, do you need police, paramedical? Both, I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
Being on my back, all the blood from my broken nose was going down my throat and essentially choking me. He was also trying to smother me and stop my cries for help while he was in the midst of raining down blows on me.
Somebody here opened the door.
Trayvon Martin was on top, correct?
Correct.
And he was the one who was raining blows down on the person on the bottom, George Zimmerman, right?
That's what it looked like.
And he yelled at him, "Stop, stop, I'm calling the police." Even with Mr. Good yelling that he was calling the police, Trayvon didn't stop. He didn't let up at all. He continued his attack. I moved my body down the grass to get my head off of the concrete sidewalk. It made my jacket ride up my body and exposed my firearm that had been concealed.
I felt his arm going down to my side, and I grabbed it.
I didn't really remember that I had the firearm on me, and I didn't think it would ever come into play.
And I just grabbed my firearm and I shot him.
Okay, so you hear George Zimmerman's side of the story, but what did the evidence actually say? We see that George Zimmerman had a bloody nose, and also there was damage to the back of his head. Now, we were portrayed in the media. The media portrayed Trayvon Martin as a sweet, innocent, young boy. Okay, you saw the pictures. He was looking all innocent, but is that who he really was? Not demeaning anyone's character, and especially when they can no longer defend themselves. But we have to remember that a lot of times what is pushed out in the media is not what is actually true. And I really got upset about this, because we should get the truth, because giving us a false narrative makes us even angrier, because the people in the jury get the truth. And that is why they voted the way they voted. That's why they did what they did, which came up with George Zimmerman being not guilty, because they had all the evidence. But those of us watching, those of us who are viewers of mainstream news, we weren't getting all of the information. We were getting a narrative. Essentially, we were getting a hoax.
Trayvon had been sent to Sanford by his mother, Sabrina Fulton, because he had been suspended from school for the third time in 3 months.
Sabrina Fulton, that is Trayvon Martin's mother, who he lived with. But she sent him to live with his father in Sanford, Florida, because in 3 months he had been suspended from school 3 times. So what kind of child was Trayvon Martin? We need to know that, because the defense is going to present him one way and the media is going to do their media thing. But who was he really? So what about some of the witnesses? One in particular is Rachel Jeantel. Rachel Jeantel was supposedly Trayvon Martin's girlfriend, but there is something about her that looks nothing like his previous girlfriends or girls that he'd been interested in the past. Rachel Jeantel was 100 pounds heavier than Trayvon, a couple of years older, or a year older. The other girls were slim and a couple of years younger. Rachel Jeantel was put up as Trayvon Martin's girlfriend. But was she really his girlfriend? There's a lot going on with this Rachel Jeantel, and we see very clearly that something is wrong with having her up on the witness stand pretending to be Diamond Eugene.
Her testimony that's shown on these phone logs, she completely blows Zimmerman's absurd self-defense claim out of the water. Mr. Martin, on Sunday evening, he had called the young lady.
And I run for it. And then the man, he said he lost the man.
They were dating.
And then the man called. And then Trayvon said the man was following him.
You call it puppy love or whatever you want to call it.
And Trayvon asked for Trayvon to run. And Trayvon said, they ain't gonna run like that.
She is a minor child.
He's gonna walk back. On the back.
Her parents does not in any way want to reveal her identity. She is a minor.
To the phone shut off. And I called him again and he had not answered the phone.
We have all the evidence now.
So Rachel Jeantel, that's her real name, but she was portraying Diamond Eugene. Shocking, isn't it? Because Diamond Eugene was Trayvon Martin's girlfriend at the time. She was on the phone with Trayvon Martin when this incident took place with George Zimmerman, an ear witness. But when the authorities, came to the home, Rachel Jeantel was there. And there's also proof that Rachel Jeantel, that's her real name. Remember, she's pretending to be Diamond Eugene. Diamond Eugene was the one on the phone with Trayvon Martin, not Rachel Jeantel. But Rachel Jeantel pretends to be Diamond Eugene. What? Because the testimony of the girlfriend is very important, because Trayvon Martin is no longer alive, not able to say anything, and she was on the phone, and she writes a letter. There's the whole big thing about the letter. The letter is a big deal, written in cursive, signed with the name Diamond Eugene.
My name was a lie.
That's a name that you made up?
That's my nickname.
But your last name isn't Eugene.
That's my mother.
Trayvon's girlfriends were all short, thin, and younger than him. Rachel Jeantel was a year older and outweighed him by 100 pounds.
Did you consider yourselves dating?
No.
Were you kind of his girlfriend or just kind of you guys? Okay, you're getting there. That day, February 26th, did Trayvon send you any text messages?
In fact, they exchanged 32 text messages that day.
Did Trayvon ever say the guy's coming at me is going to hit me?
Yeah.
Did he ever say the guy got out of the car?
You want that too?
By now, it was obvious that Rachel Jeantel was just making things up as she went. At the end of the interview, she actually tries to tell the prosecutor she's lying, but he doesn't get it.
I got guilt.
You got guilt? Why do you feel guilt?
Real guilty.
Huh?
Real guilty.
Why do you feel real guilty?
I ain't know about it.
Huh?
I ain't know about it.
Rachel did not know about it because she was not Diamond.
All of this outrage that got out into the public because it was made to look like a race crime. But was it really a race crime? I mean, things are put out of the media one way, and then the jury, their verdict is something opposite of what we think in the audience what it should be. We're out here looking like, how can they do this? They're really after us. It's so emotional. but that is done on purpose.
Here to demand that the state attorney charge this homeowners association loose cannon with murder.
And let's just talk a little bit about Trayvon Martin's father, Tracy Martin. Tracy Martin, well, he had gotten into some trouble in the past, particularly in 1989 with drug dealing. That's right, a few $1 million worth of drugs in 1989. He even had a Crip sign tattooed on his neck, but he had that overlaid with praying hands right before the trial. Yes, that was Trayvon's father, Tracy Martin. And what kind of trouble did Trayvon get into? Well, evidence shows that Trayvon Martin, like I said earlier, was suspended from school 3 times in 3 months. He got into a lot of trouble for fighting, always getting kicked out of school. And so eventually Sabrina Fulton sent him home to be with his father. She felt like it would be best. Well, he got into some trouble, and we have text messages that prove what kind of life that Trayvon was living. Trayvon was smoking drugs, he was getting high, and something called lean, that you use candy and you use cough syrup and you use soda. He had the particular candy that is often used is Skittles. And Trayvon Martin had Skittles on that fateful night, Skittles and an Arizona tea. Could this be what he was going to use to get high? According to everything we've seen, everything, absolutely, that's what it looked like he was going to do with those Skittles and that iced tea. And Trayvon Martin, again, was getting into a lot of trouble with school, getting into fights, and he made it very well known that he had an affinity for being a gangster. And unfortunately for Trayvon, he had friends, really good friends, Mario and Stefan, that were also getting into a lot of trouble.
Some of Trayvon's male friends seemed like bad news. His best friend was Mario, whom Trayvon called Bru, meaning brother. His real name was Romario Caradis. Trayvon and Mario seemed to go way back. However, Mario could not have been a good influence. His Twitter account image was a gang sign. He made sure everyone knew he was in a gang. He even used fake gold teeth. On a video on Mario's Facebook page, he's showing off his guns.
Hey, hold on, bro. That shit up.
He shot at targets of people. The Miami gang culture was very big and plenty of trouble, and it was all around them. Mario was also friends with Stefan Bramble, another close friend of Trayvon. Trayvon called him Steve O. On Stefan Bramble's Facebook page, I was shocked to see a video he posted smoking marijuana with Trayvon.
So it's important to note that these friends, Mario and Stefan, were not good influences on Trayvon Martin's life. They were obsessed with gang culture, throwing up gang signs all over their social media pages, smoking different, smoking weed, just smoking, throwing up gang signs, and really putting the grills, the fake gold teeth in their mouth. They were obsessed with the gangsta lifestyle, and it was evident in everything that they did. So this was who Trayvon Martin was around. He was around this kind of influence. And remember, his dad had some sort of allegiance to the Crips, that CAT tattoo, which meant cripping all the time. But he conveniently had that overlaid with praying hands when all of this media attention took place because of what happened to Trayvon. We want to know the truth. And sometimes the truth is hard for some people in the Black community to hear, because we have been trained to look at ourselves as victims. And when it turns out that what happened to us is really, I'm just going to be honest with you, part of our own doing, or totally our own doing, then you get backlash against people like me who just want the truth to get out. But how can we make things better if all we do is pretend like we're the ones being targeted, we're the ones being oppressed, we weren't doing anything wrong, it's their fault, they're after me because I'm Black? But what about the times that it just has to do with what you're doing? Okay, because let's be honest, white people don't unalive Black people the way Black people unalive Black people. More than 90% of the time, like maybe 95%, a Black person their life is taken by another Black person. person. That is a fact. And we don't seem to scream and holler and protest and march with our signs unless there's a white person involved. And we don't want to hear it. We're emotional and we don't look at the facts of what happened in the case. We should all want the truth, and we all need to take accountability for our own actions. These are facts, and never ever want to cling on to a false narrative. And I'm going to get to exactly why this false narrative was allowed to play out into the public in the first place. Very nefarious, and it goes back to that same old demon, division.
He was smoking weed?
No, I did not.
Trayvon's cousin Booby, Stephen Martin, tried to warn him not to deal drugs, but Trayvon wouldn't listen. I ain't your parent, but G shit, throw it away. Why you gotta knock my hustle?
The kids call it Skittles or Triple C, but you know it as cough syrup.
Like his good friend Stephon Bramble, Trayvon was into lean to get high. The ingredients included cough syrup, a soft drink, and candy.
Cough medicine contains dextromethorphan, a dangerous hallucinogenic.
I had it before. Just use Robitussin and soda to make some fire-ass lean. Codeine is a higher dose of DXM.
So a week before Trayvon Martin's death, we find out that guns and gun dealings are his life. And also, let's not forget about the cough syrup, which has dextromorphan in it, mixed in with a soda or sugary drink, and candy. And remember the Skittles.
Money on my mind, constant with this grind.
You want a .22 revolver? What shooter? Tell fool I got 80 for him right now.
So let's get back to the girlfriend, Diamond Eugene, or is it Rachel Jeantel?
Are you able to read that copy well enough that you can tell us if it's in fact the same letter?
No,
Are you unable to read that at all?
I don't understand. Cursive. I don't read cursive.
Rachel Jeantel does not read cursive. She did not understand the letter, but this was a letter that she supposedly wrote. But how could she write a letter so well written, but she didn't understand it? Now, to be fair, I'm going to leave the full link to this in the description box below. There was an extensive research on this. The man who did this did a great job, extensive research, and I'll leave the link in the description box below. But it turns out that, yeah, it was proven that that Rachel Jeantel, who pretended to be Diamond, is not the one who wrote that letter. And she felt pretty bad about it.
So did you dictate the letter?
What does dictate? Explain dictate. What's the example of dictate?
Another person writes down what's being said.
I will get confused. I don't even know what I remember.
You're having trouble with remembering the details?
Yeah.
This woman, Rachel Jeantel, was put up because they didn't want anybody to talk about that real letter. Okay, the defense did not want that. She didn't know about it. Her answers were very cryptic. She was not very definitive. And that was it right there. It was proven. But in the media, the left-leaning liberal media I was watching at the time, CNN, was not exposing the truth. So we were all left with our emotions and a bunch of lies that we'd been fed. The truth of the matter is that Trayvon Martin, unfortunately, made a lot of bad decisions in his life. I'm not saying he was a horrible person. He made a lot of bad decisions. He was into gang culture. He was into guns and gun dealings. He had this side hustle. He was smoking weed. He was getting high. He was having sex with multiple girls. But Diamond was the one he was really into. Now, this girl, Rachel Jeantel, I'm sure she's a very nice person, and come to find out later in this documentary that she did go ahead and graduate high school, and Diamond, she went ahead and graduated college with a criminal justice degree. So they are doing things with their lives that are very positive. But why would the media do this? Why would they make it seem like this was a hate crime? From the evidence, it looks like Trayvon Martin was high. He was walking around in a neighborhood that had already been crime ridden. And George Zimmerman called and said he looks high or something. And from the looks of it, he probably was, because he got high on a regular basis. And a lot of text messages going back and forth about him getting high, using cough syrup, candy, and soda. And he had Arizona tea and Skittles with him that day. And then more than likely, George Zimmerman asked who was he, and then a fight ensued. Trayvon Martin overtook George Zimmerman. He just overtook him, beating him, pummeling him, broke his nose, hitting his head in the concrete. And there was the gun that George Zimmerman says that he forgot that he had, and he shoots him one time. Bad choices. Did he have to respond that way just because someone wanted to know who he was? We have to take responsibility for our children. And I'm going to be honest, with these dads not being in the homes, this is what we get with a lot of children going astray. And that is why Sabrina Fulton sent him to be with his father. But if a person is troubled, even if you change their location, the trouble still follows them because it is in them. It's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm sure they are still grieving to this day. But we know that unfortunately things happen like this, and it's very sad. But we got to remember that the media is pushing out a narrative that causes racial division. Now, why would they do this? Why would they do this? Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mother, ended up, being a Democrat operative. Like, she works for the Democrats. I mean, she ran for office. She works with them, and she pushes out this racist narrative. She does. I mean, every moment, every chance that she gets, she does that.
Because of someone's color of their skin, people hate you so much that they want to kill you.
Black people must be afraid of America and vote Democrat. He's got my vote. People, please get out and vote. It's important.
Your life depends on it. Get out and vote.
Sabrina is now running for office.
I am you.
Sabrina Fulton ran for Miami-Dade County Commission, District 1, but lost. Well, that's it for the video today. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of it. And, we just have to remember that everything that is put out is not necessarily truth once you start digging a little bit further. So LaTarsha Brown, Jussie Smollett, and Trayvon Martin, these all had one thing in common, which are race hoaxes. And I can do other videos on those other two as well. And I think I should, but I wanted to bring those names up because the things were quite similar, particularly the other two with LaTarsha Brown and Jussie Smollett. We have to also remember that we are better united rather than divided. And don't let anything or anyone cause you to hate someone just because of what they look like. And remember, just because what the media puts out there doesn't mean it's actually true. And so we're going to get back to exactly why was this narrative pushed. It was pushed out there to make Black people afraid, to make us emotional, and to force us to vote a certain way. That same old demon of division that seems to be more prominent on the left. And it's just facts. They use fear. They use hatred, division, so much fear mongering. The Bible tells us that that's one of the things that God hates. Someone who sows discord among brothers. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all one race, the human race. There's no need to just put everybody into a same category. Well, they're awful because they're Black, or they're racist because they're white. It's not fair, and it is wrong. I hope you all learned a lot from this video today. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America, and march on, warriors.